Let me tell you, if you'd told me that, one day, I'd be sitting on my porch sipping tea while wild bears handled my neighborhood politics, I'd have laughed you right off my property. But that's how life goes, right? Just when you think you're settled, bam. The universe hands you a plot twist straight out of a reality show. You ever wake up to find your world flipped upside down, not by fate or disaster, but by one woman with a pearl necklace and a clipboard? Yeah, buckle up, this is a good one. It all started on a muggy Tuesday morning. I woke up to the kind of chaos you just can't ignore. My dogs, good boys, but not exactly brave, were losing their minds, barking at the top of their lungs. I threw on my flannel robe, tripped over my slippers, and stumbled out onto the porch. And there it was. My honey shed, the pride of my post-retirement days, wide open, shelves nearly wiped clean. All those jars, months of work, late nights, stings, and sweat, gone. But the kicker? Right at the end of my driveway, Karen stood there like she owned the sun itself. You know the type. There's a Karen in every story, but mine was Olympic level. Sunglasses at sunrise, shoes so white they'd blind you. That little purse hanging off her elbow like a threat. And she was loading my honey into her white SUV like she'd just won a shopping spree. When I shouted, she just waved and said, all chirpy, "Don't worry, John. The HOA will make good use of this." Then she drove off. Just like that. I was left standing in my driveway, robe flapping, dogs barking, mind spinning, watching my hard work disappear in a cloud of gravel dust. That's when I looked toward the woods out back, where the bears like to wander in the evenings, and something sweet started brewing in my mind. You know what I mean? Now, if you've never lived in an HOA neighborhood, consider yourself blessed. There's always one person, usually the same person, who acts like their name is printed on every deed in the subdivision. In my little corner of the world, that person was Karen Mitchell, queen of the cul-de-sac, self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood. She'd chased off the last HOA president just by existing, or maybe it was all the fines and passive-aggressive newsletters. Karen treated the HOA like her private police force. She fined people for their trash bins sitting out 2 minutes too long. She reported kids for skateboarding after dark, tried to ban bird feeders. Yes, bird feeders, because they attract wildlife. Once, she made me repaint my barn because, according to her, the shade of red clashed with the community's harmonious aesthetic. I told her that barn had been the same color for 200 years. She said, well, not in my HOA. That's Karen for you. Always confusing my with ours. But, see, I could usually ignore her, tune her out like a distant radio station, until she went after the bees. My bees. I've been keeping bees for 2 decades, ever since I retired from teaching high school biology. Started small, just a few hives at the back of the property, far enough from the homes that nobody could complain. Or so I thought. I followed every rule, every zoning requirement, even went to the HOA meetings to make sure. But Karen? She'd find something to whine about. Your bees make my flowers sticky, she said once. Another time, they're aggressive toward my cat. Funny, since her cat once clawed open a hive and found out what a real lesson in natural law looks like. But never, in all my years, did I think she'd just steal my honey. That morning, after her little drive-by, my first instinct was to call the sheriff, raise hell, start a fight. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, maybe exhaustion, or maybe just the pure, surreal stupidity of it all, an HOA president stealing honey like a Disney villain. Later that afternoon, Karen was out strutting around the block, waving at neighbors like she was campaigning for mayor. When she saw me in my yard, she called out, "Your honey's delightful, John. I just sampled it at our HOA brunch committee meeting." I stared at her. "You mean the honey you stole from my shed?" She put on that innocent head tilt. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It's within HOA property lines. Shared produce. You should thank me for showcasing your work to the community." Shared produce. The gall. I clenched my fists and gave her my best forced smile. "Next time you feel like showcasing, maybe try asking first." She just laughed, one of those fake, practiced laughs that makes your skin crawl, and said, "Oh, John, don't be so territorial. The bees work for everyone." You ever have a phrase that makes your eye twitch? That's mine. The bees work for everyone. As if she'd been out there sweating in the summer, getting stung, dodging wasps, and fixing busted frames. But arguing with Karen was like teaching calculus to a brick. She just sits there, proud of being dense. The next few days, things only got worse. Word got around that Karen was giving out my honey to the other HOA members, labeling the jars, HOA Local Gold. One neighbor even showed me her Facebook post, Karen posing behind my jars, the caption, supporting community sustainability. I wanted to scream. Sure, I could call the police, but what would I say? She stole my honey? The cops would laugh. Besides, Karen had friends on the board. She could twist anything into a committee meeting. So I did what I do best, I thought. I remembered all the times Karen had gone too far. The $50 fine for my rustic mailbox. Her attempt to ban compost bins. How she called animal control when I left birdseed out for the cardinals. And then it hit me. Behind my property, just past the tree line, there's an old stretch of land called Bear Hollow. Every summer, a couple of black bears meander through. They never bother anyone, just tip over a trash bin, maybe root around for berries. But boy, do they love the smell of honey. That evening, as the sun set, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the shadows move. The woods behind my house were alive, the kind of alive you can feel in your chest. Somewhere out there, I imagined, was a bear with a nose for trouble. The next morning, I was out by the hives early. Bees humming, pollen flying, life as it should be. I noticed Karen's SUV parked half hidden down the street. Trunk open. She was carrying more jars, my jars. After stealing once, she'd come back for seconds. I stood there holding my smoker, disbelief painted on my face. She saw me, froze for a half second, then flashed that same bold smile. Just a few more jars for HOA gift baskets. You don't mind, do you? Didn't even let me answer. Slammed her trunk and sped off. That was it. Game on. You can't reason with someone who's always right in their own mind. Sometimes you just have to let nature teach the lesson. That night, I took a few old honey buckets, sticky, half-crystallized leftovers. Stuff you can't sell but still sweet as sin, and left them cracked open behind my shed. Nothing illegal, just recycling, you might say. The scent drifted into the woods on the evening air. And I waited. By dawn, the scent must have worked its magic, because when I checked my trail camera, I saw paw prints near the edge of the yard. Later that week, Karen was hosting another of her famous HOA brunches, tablecloths, mimosas, the works. My honey jars lined up in the middle of the table, labels reading Karen's Honey Bliss. I watched from behind the fence, trying not to laugh. The wind carried that sweet smell right to the woods. You ever seen chaos move in slow motion? About 20 minutes in, just as Karen was pouring honey over pancakes, a big black bear ambled out of the woods, nose twitching. Her guests froze. One screamed, another dove behind a hedge. Karen started spraying the bear with her garden hose, yelling, "Shoo! Go away. This is private property." As if the bear could read the HOA bylaws. I lost it. I laughed so hard I thought I'd pop a rib. There she was, queen of the clipboards, trying to negotiate with a wild bear. The scene was pure poetry. Eventually, the bear left, and Karen was left in a backyard that looked like a tornado had danced through a brunch. The police shrugged, told her to call wildlife services. Later, she stomped over to my porch, voice shaking with that fake concern. "John, your bees are a risk. I've filed a proposal to suspend your beekeeping privileges until further review." I leaned back, deadpan. "Let me get this straight. You steal my honey, host a brunch that attracts bears, and now I'm the problem?" She switched gears, voice dripping venom. "Watch your tone, John. The HOA handbook clearly doesn't outrank the state wildlife code." I cut in. "And it sure doesn't let you steal." She bristled, threatened legal action, and marched off. But for the first time, I saw hesitation flicker in her eyes. But with Karen, hesitation's always just a speed bump, never a stop sign. A few days later, another bear visit, this time during her backyard yoga session. Picture this: Karen, mid-downward dog, a bear sniffing her lavender-scented candles. Her guests scattered like leaves in a storm, one woman climbing a chair, another running for the pool. Karen shrieked, grabbed the hose again, and tried to enforce HOA rules on wildlife. "Get out. This is private property." The bears didn't care. They just helped themselves to her herbal tea and fruit salad. After that, Karen doubled down, called another emergency meeting, tried to pass a motion banning all beehives, compost bins, even bird feeders. It didn't pass. Not even close. But she wasn't finished. She never is. Then, trying to stage evidence that I was baiting bears. She slipped, cursed, and limped away, probably more embarrassed than hurt. Next morning, she called a meeting, presented her proof. I waited until she'd worked the crowd into a lather, then stood up and played my footage. Karen, in glorious HD, planting honey herself. The room erupted. Karen stormed out, neck brace askew, screaming about corruption. After that, she started going door to door, spreading rumors that my honey was toxic, my bees were mutant, and the bears would be back any minute. I'd had enough. That night, I left a little thank you by the woods, just a touch of old honey, nothing more. Sure enough, at 3 in the morning, the bears paid her yard a visit. She was on the porch in a robe, waving a broom and yelling, "Get out. You're trespassing." Yeah, that happened. She'd spent years weaponizing HOA trespassing rules, and now she was using them on wild animals. And then came the lawsuit. Thick envelope on my doorstep. Karen was suing me for negligence, property damage, emotional distress, and endangerment. I nearly spit out my coffee. Property damage. The only thing damaged was her pride. Lucky for me, my lawyer Lisa was used to Karen's antics. We gathered footage, neighbor statements, every legal document you could imagine. In court, Karen showed up in sunglasses and a neck brace, her lawyer looking like he wished he'd picked a different line of work. The judge, God bless him, looked like he'd rather be at the dentist. Karen claimed I'd weaponized my bees to summon bears, dabbed at imaginary tears, and pointed at me like I was running a criminal enterprise. Lisa played the video of Karen sneaking around with honey, then the brunch footage, bears calmly enjoying Karen's harvest while her guests shrieked. The judge leaned back, rubbed his temples, and finally asked, "Miss Mitchell, are you suggesting this man manipulates bears?" Karen stammered. "He uses pheromones or something." The courtroom erupted. Even the bailiff cracked a smile. Judge dismissed the case on the spot. Lisa even got my legal fees covered. A week later, Karen moved out. Movers packed up her pearl necklaces, her HOA president plaque, and her ego. As her SUV pulled away, the neighborhood exhaled. I sat on my porch, tea in hand, bees buzzing nearby, and watched the sunset. No gloating, just relief. A new couple moved in, a pair of teachers, friendly folks with a dog and plans for a vegetable garden. We got to talking. Turns out, they wanted to start beekeeping too. The universe, I thought, has a wicked sense of humor. And that, folks, is how I learned you can fight with bylaws. You can argue at meetings, but sometimes you just have to let nature handle things. Bears, bees, and a healthy dose of karma. Way better than any court. So what about you? Ever had a Karen in your life? Ever see poetic justice play out right in front of you? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear how you handled it. And hey, if you believe in a little wild justice, or just like seeing the underdog or under beekeeper win, don't forget to subscribe. Justice, real justice, is a little like honey. Takes time, patience, and sometimes a bear or two to remind us how sweet life can be.